So this session is being co-organized by WTO, Government of Kazakhstan, and the International Trade Center, as you see the two posters there. So my plan for this session is for me to speak briefly for first 5 minutes to set the scene and then introduce our panel here, then ask questions and engage with the panel for about 60 minutes. And then I open the floor for questions you may have from the floor here. Also the participants, I believe they are linked in Zoom. And I think we do need to close the session rather on time as there's another session starting in this room. So let us start. So just to recap, WTO was established in 1995 with 128 original members. And since then, 36 new members joined the WTO through accession negotiations, which took on average about 10 years and 2 months. So these include large economies such as China, Russia, Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, but also include small economies, including 9 countries joined as LDCs, least developed countries. And today we still have 24 governments trying to join the WTO. So now let me focus on Central Asia, which is really the focus of discussion today. So like many states which were part of the Soviet Union, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyz Republic, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan first became observer to the GATT, which is a general agreement on tariff and trade, predecessor to the WTO. So basically this is soon after the independence, and started accession negotiation between 1994 and 96, except Turkmenistan, which decided at that time not to proceed. And Tajikistan started later in 2001. So from this region, Kyrgyz Republic was the first one to join the WTO in 1998, spending about 2 years and 8 months of negotiation since its application was accepted. Then Tajikistan in 2013, after 11 years and 8 months of negotiation, then Kazakhstan in 2015, after 19 years and 9 months of negotiation. So this year, Kyrgyz Republic is celebrating its 25th anniversary of WTO membership, and Tajikistan is actually 10th, and Kazakhstan is 8th. So what is left in this region are 2, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. So let me start with Uzbekistan. So which was actually first to start in 1994 from this region, but its process was stalled for 15 years between 2005 and 2000. But since 2000, I think Uzbekistan, as you probably read it in the news, they are very, very active and holding 3 rounds of working party meeting or the negotiation with WTO members, most recently in March. So Turkmenistan actually was the first Soviet former republic to become the observer to the GATT in June 1992. But as I said earlier, it did not continue its observership into the WTO in 95. So it waited until July 2020 to become WTO observer, and then last year in February, they started the accession process. So I gave you lots of dates, and then with that, let me introduce our panel in the order of the program. So first, on my left, I have Ambassador Jana Aychanova, which is currently the permanent representative of Kazakhstan to the WTO. Prior to coming to Geneva, Ambassador Aychanova was a Minister of Economic Integration of Kazakhstan and served as chief negotiator for Kazakhstan for 13 years. Next to her, we have Mr. Azizbek Urunov, who is the special representative of the president on WTO issue and the chief negotiator for Uzbekistan's accession. He was officially appointed last week, exactly 1 week ago. And next to him, we have Rahim Berdi Jabarov, chairman of the board of the State Bank of Foreign Economic Affairs of Turkmenistan, who has been, I would say, quite actively involved in recent months in Ashgabat's conversation with WTO, including with Director General. And then next to him, we have Mr. Nubidilizoda. I'm sorry if my pronunciation is not right. Hidin, Deputy Minister of Economic Development and Trade of Tajikistan. And to his left, well, maybe you are right, Ms. Daria Karman from our partner agency, International Trade Center. She's the Associate Program Officer for Trade Facilitation and Policy for Business. So let me first start with a country which has already gone through accession negotiation. So let me start with, of course, Kazakhstan, Ambassador Chanova. So here's a question to you. So what was the most challenging part of the very complex accession negotiation which you led for 13 years? Then now, 8 years on, what do you see as the most important achievement for Kazakhstan? You have the floor.
Thank you, Maika. Using this opportunity, I would like first to thank our distinguished speakers, colleagues from Central Asian countries who came to Astana to participate at the Astana International Forum, as well as to serve as speakers of this specific forum. And we are also looking forward to continuation of our program with very much focus on regional trade and economic cooperation. Tomorrow, when Director General of the WTO, Dr. Ngozi, will be arriving, and I know that we have a regional working lunch meeting, and then which will be followed by the session at 3 p.m. So I just wanted, using this opportunity first to express our appreciation on behalf of the government of Kazakhstan, and second also to make this announcement, on the forthcoming international trade, global trade agenda of the Astana International Forum as of tomorrow morning. So, and these two sessions preceding these meetings tomorrow. So, the first question, as well as the second question, are very complex ones. And, the most challenging, I think everything was challenging. So I can't say any sphere where I can say, no, it was easy, it didn't make any problem for us to make this or that commitment. So my advice to my colleagues, who are present here, particularly from acceding governments of Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, and I understand we are very much honored today to have, chief negotiators from these two countries. And I served myself for 13 years in my capacity as Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade, and then Minister of Economy and Trade and Economic Integration of Kazakhstan. And in parallel, I had my second title, which was Special Representative of Kazakhstan for WTO accession negotiations. So I think that, the most challenging and the first challenge is to know what WTO is about, the legal framework of WTO. Because negotiations, they, as you know very well now by today, they focus, they have different formats and they focus on different spheres. First, it's a multilateral format of systemic negotiations. And I know that you are at different stages of your negotiations. And I know Uzbekistan is already working with a factual summary paper and working about the shift that's already a very strong political message when you shift to or transform your factual summary into the first draft working party report. I remember that day very well in Kazakhstan's negotiations history, and to me it was already a big achievement because, it's a political message from the government of Uzbekistan, as well as from other members, that you are starting the very serious phase of negotiations, because Working Party, it's already the stage of making commitments, working on the draft of commitments. And I know that also Turkmenistan has started its work as an observer, fresh observer of the WTO, its work on the first trade policy, how it's called, trade policy, MFTR, yes, it's a MFTR, because MFTR of Kazakhstan was done before I joined as a chief negotiator of the government of Kazakhstan. So, the first challenge is to know very well the legal framework of the WTO, because you will be, as I have said, you will be holding multilateral negotiations on systemic issues within the framework of your Working Party report. You will be holding multilateral negotiations on agriculture subsidies, on domestic support for agriculture, and you will be holding bilateral negotiations on services and goods market access. And there will be strong temptation on the part of negotiating partners, particularly from advanced economies, to ask for more than what WTO is requiring from its founding members, or for more than what they have made a commitment. So in order to not to allow this to happen, you have to know what WTO is about. That's the first challenge. And you have to have a very strong technical team who will be working days and nights and knowing by heart in every given sphere. And when we were doing distribution of labor in our negotiating team, we looked how it has been distributed in the US and in the European Union, because we were negotiating. And when we come to Brussels or to Washington, we come like around 10 people representing various agencies of the government, depending on the topics which we are negotiating. And they have around 100 people sitting on the other side. And each of them are very good specialists in their given fields. They know by heart what their national policies are. They know by heart what WTO legal framework is, because they have drafted that legal framework, they have developed, negotiated. And the third is that they know what founding members of the WTO have committed. And they will be using that temptation in order to get more than what WTO requires. That's the first thing. And second is, of course, when it comes to the economies from our region, I think that agriculture negotiations are the most challenging ones, and it was challenging for us as well. And I think that the advice would be to keep the agriculture for the later stage. And that will be also the, aspiration or the plans on the part of negotiating partners as well, because agriculture is always political. It was political at home, because when you go to the parliament, nobody will be asking about intellectual property rights commitments or any other commitments, but they will be asking, what about agriculture? How they are going to survive after accession to the WTO, and what subsidies you will be allowed, and what type of subsidies you will be allowed. So it's a very crucial issue on which I found that in our home, domestic environment, everybody is an expert. So you have to find your right arguments both domestically as well as externally. And the third, when it comes to specific Kazakhstan's case, the most challenging, as you know well, Maika, it was at the later stage, that by 2009, we have already completed all our goods market access negotiations. And in 2010, Kazakhstan became a founding member of the customs union between Russian Federation, Belarus, and Kazakhstan. And the Eurasian economic unions, but at that time customs unions, common external tariff was very much based on the commitments of the Russian Federation on goods market access, on import duties, binding levels. If there are experts, they understand what I'm speaking about. So, and there was a difference, and there is still difference, and that's another challenge which we'll be facing now as a member of the WTO. For around 3,500 tariff lines, where Kazakhstan's commitment were more liberal than those of Russian Federation. You know, we are a landlocked country, we have the transportation leg, and this cost of transportation from the seaports to Kazakhstan, they also serve as additional taxes or additional import duties. So, and we have made a commitment, and it was a very political commitment, you know, in 2015, there were already very crucial changes in the geopolitical situation or in our region. So in these circumstances, we managed to get an agreement that for 3,500 tariff lines, Kazakhstan will maintain exemption from the common external tariff of the customs union, and will be having a compensatory negotiations on behalf of the customs union, just based the similar formula as when European Union enlarges. You know, it's a similar mathematic formula we'll be using, and we'll start that negotiations next year. I think I should stop here. Thank you. About the achievements. Okay, sorry. Because challenges I can continue for 24/7, you know. And achievements, yes. Tomorrow we'll be showing a video before the special session, high-level session of Dr. Ngozi. And one of the achievements will be highlighted in that video. You know, I have here our services specialist, Asya Shigalieva, and she was also working hard and on making very bold commitments in the services sector. So we used the services market access bilateral negotiations for undertaking reforms and also allowing more competition in the services sector. And we see that during the last 7 years, since Kazakhstan's accession to the WTO, we have 35% increase in foreign direct investments into the services sector and value-added services sector. And this is the contribution to economic diversification of Kazakhstan, to reduction of our economy's dependence on exports of energy and other raw materials and commodities, basic primary commodities. And also we see more competition, which is good for both ordinary population of Kazakhstan, you know, among service providers and the financial services. As you know, I arrived here into Kazakhstan. We are using Kaspi Bank to do the transactions to telephones, to pay even for taxi. We can pay to the telephone number of the taxi driver. So I think that these are all maybe, you know, hidden. We don't say too much about the WTO accession, but this is thanks to the reforms which we have undertaken in the course of preparation for the accession to the WTO. And I'm sure I'll have other opportunities. In agriculture, we have also had very, I think, excellent agreement on the volume of subsidies, price supporting subsidies. It's 8 Gazi is coming. He was our chief agriculture negotiator, who was helping me to justify 8.5%, just like as in China's case, we got the subsidies for development of our agricultural sector. So we have, you know, if there are finances in the government budget, we can, you know, render these subsidies or deliver these subsidies to development of agriculture sector up to 8.5% of the gross agricultural product volume. So I think I should stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Achanova. I know it was only tip of the iceberg of the challenges you had to manage over 13 years. And also, I think we will be very much looking forward to see the video. I've been told that I'm also part of the video. Yes. So looking forward to be part of this. And okay, let me move on because we are a little bit behind the time as well. Let me now move to Tajikistan also. Deputy Minister, probably you are not directly involved in the accession negotiation like Ambassador Achanova, but please do tell us, this year, I think Tajikistan is celebrating its 10th anniversary of the WTO membership. So what have been the most important achievement for Tajikistan?
As dear Mrs. Maika Ochivaka, dear distinguished colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank Kazakhstan side for the traditional warm welcome and create a favorable environment for conducting today's important event. At the same time, I would like to express Our gratitude to the European Union, to the World Trade Organization and the International Trade Center for constant support in the social economic development of Tajikistan and for fruitful cooperation. I'm pleased to share with my colleagues the Tajikistan engagement in the multilateral trading system. The President of the Republic of Tajikistan, His Excellency Emomali Rahman, determined export promotion, export diversification and trade simplification as a key priority of the government trade policy with the aim of the develop domestic production, attract foreign investment, ensure free trade and enter large world markets in the Republic of Tajikistan, joined the WTO 10 years ago. Within the accession of the process, representative of the Republic of Tajikistan answered 1,300 requests and questions of the member states of the WTO, held 6 bilateral negotiations on issue of access to the service markets and 13 on issues of the access to the goods markets. As a result of the bilateral negotiation on March 2nd, 2013, the Republic of Tajikistan officially became a full-fledged member of WTO. The founder of the pieces and the national unity, the leader of the nation, the President of the Republic of Tajikistan, Honorable Emomali Rahman, noted that in the history of every nation, important events takes place that play this role in this future destiny. The date of our country's accession to the WTO is one of the events that directly contributes for the future sustainable economy and social development of the society. In particular, in 2014, the program of the adaptation of the economy of the Republic of Tajikistan due to its membership in WTO was adopted, which related the promotion of general trade activities, such as technical barriers to the trade, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, services, intellectual property rights, taking measures in the field of the agriculture and industry, as well as education, and up to now 80% of it has been already implemented. With the accession process, 100 normative legal acts were amended and more than 55 normative legal acts were approved in the direction of the improving activity of foreign trade and promotion development of the country's economy. At the same time, the coordination committee of the trade facilitation was established, which functioned as a good forum for solving trade development issues between the representatives of the relevant ministries and agencies, development partners, and the private sector. The trade portal of Tajikistan, the implementation of special protective, anti-dumping and compensatory measures, the simplification of transportation and transit, the single window for the clearance of the exports and imports operations, and increasing competitive as well as a measure sanitary and phytosanitary were established. Within 10 years of the memberships in WTO, Tajikistan demonstrated remarkable progress and managed to ensure average economic growth of 7.1. The real GDP increased by 2.9 times. GDP per capita 2.3 times, industrial production 4.3 times, investment in fixed capital formulation 2.8 times, agriculture 2.4 times, retail trade 3.3 times, state budget 3 times, and the number of the trading partners of the more than 110 countries. Also in this year, the development of the service sector was significant, and its share, the GDP was 41.3% in 2022. The poverty rate in the country has also decreased from 35 to 6 in 2013 to 22.5 in 2022. At the same time, the volume of the foreign trade turnover increased from more than 1.5 times. In order to obtain more benefits from the memberships in the WTO, the government of the countries is working on obtaining the EU trade performance system, GSP+, which provides zero custom duties for the domestic products, as a result of which strengthening the production of domestic products and improving its quality and competitiveness will be achieved. Also, what advice I will give to Uzbekistan and our Turkmenistan brothers? First of all, I would like to wish best luck to our brother countries, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, in the WTO process accession. Tajikistan has gone this process with the 11 years and gained great experience from the negotiation and the discussions. Therefore, we stand ready to cooperate with our brothers, and we will constantly support them in the process to getting in the WTO. WTO has many benefits which allows the countries to open their potential in the international markets and gives a great opportunity for bringing economy closer to each other. The concept of the most favored nation rule, the national treatment policy, and reciprocity allows countries to trade freely, openly, and take great advantage from it. So I advise our partners countries to join WTO and reap the benefits from these great multilateral trade platforms. And in conclusion, I would like to reiterate again our readiness to closely cooperate with our partner countries with the process of their accession to the WTO. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, really elaborating, I think, what happened in the last 10 years. And I think the number that you have cited is actually quite impressive. So it's good to know you are happy with WTO membership, and then also, especially also noting on the trade facilitation side, you are making use that the committee as a basis for, I think, domestic consultation format, which is continue to be important. And then also thank you for the advice you have given to your neighboring countries. So let me now turn to acceding government. Let me start with Uzbekistan, Mr. Urunov. So Uzbekistan has been quite active, I think, last 3 years since the accession process was resumed. So what sort of, in these 3 years, what lesson have you, sort of, Uzbekistan has learned? And then, of course, now you are the newly appointed chief negotiator. What is your vision for the accession process, especially in light of the presidential decree issued last week, which aim at accelerating the accession process? Floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael, for the question. First of all, reactivating the process 3 years ago, I dare to say, even though the first membership request was back in 1994, we actually began the process from the beginning after 15 years of dormancy. And here, I would like to mention that the beginning is always hard. In this sense, the team led by previous negotiator did a lot of manual work to put the process in track. We had almost no one from the old team engaged back then in the process. So the team is, that's why now very young, not only in terms of age, but in terms of expertise as well. So we had to start everything from the clean sheet 3 years ago. Therefore, maybe in terms of proceeding, maybe we have been a little bit slow, yet our leadership is completely unsatisfied with this pace, because since the coming of the President Mirziyoyev, in the office in 2016, Uzbekistan has been the place of dynamic reforms and change. Transformation are happening every day, and that's why we have no other choice than meeting this pace given. Regarding the lessons learned, I would like to mention several of them. The first one is the later, the harder. So WTO is on its own, is a dynamic organization. What was true when it was just established can be already now outdated. And then with the IT and other technology progresses, the rules of games are as well changing respectively. Lately, for example, it has become too hard to define where a specific good is produced, as production chain has become so global and interdependent. Or with e-commerce emerging, again, tariff control is becoming less efficient. We can observe the shift from wholesale to retail globally. Taking all this into account, new rules and requirements are making the accession process quite complicated. Therefore, Uzbekistan, we do think, must advance faster and be more focused on substance and, the most important, ready for change. Second, it's useless on attempts to progress in accession process if the candidate country is not ready for the change, for reforms. Third, WTO is a member-driven organization. Major conducts are to be done with WTO member countries on bilateral and multilateral front with constructive interaction on all issues. Fourth, the process is based on the mutual give-up principle. Here, our negotiation team must be well prepared for them. It's like Real Madrid is playing against Uzbek Pakhtakor Football Club. So Real Madrid wants to score a lot of goals, but our mission is to concede as few as possible. Meanwhile, from this we get more experience, and such expertise gives us opportunity to be better and compete well enough later on. So it will have a much better effect on the long term. So I can tell you that the lessons learned are quite a few. We'll be moving, basing on those lessons learned. Regarding the second part of the question, now we have moved to very important momentum, I would say a quite complex phase in our accession process. Past 2 months, there were held personally by the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan 2 meetings dedicated to WTO issues. I don't remember that we had such a strong political will before. Just as you mentioned, just a few days ago, new presidential decree on accelerating the process was signed by President Mirziyoyev. So we have reconsidered our approach. Therefore, we'll be actively implementing, first of all, our domestic work, as well as intending to be more decisive and substantive on negotiation front as well. Taking into account the later, the harder principle, so interagency commission and the negotiation team are now refreshed. They are given all the authority. Chief negotiator henceforth is busy only with WTO issues, so no other obligations on the chief negotiator. That's why the decision was made to define the chief negotiator at the president's representative level. Also, I want to say that we are not bound to grandfather rights. That's why new department within the Ministry of Justice was established. Now, the department is responsible for the harmonization of the legislation. And for this year, we are planning to adopt over 30 new normative legal acts. And from July the 1st this year, no more legislation proposals are initiated unless they meet with the WTO rules and agreements. So Commission was given the right to block those new normative legal acts initiation if they don't meet with the WTO requirements. And the Ministry of Justice is the one responsible for proposing, giving their conclusions, whether they meet or not. And at the Ministry of Investment, Industry and Trade, a new enlarged department on WTO issues is also introduced. New divisions on WTO issues have been established in all involved ministries and agencies. So the experts in these divisions are will be busy only with the WTO related tasks. Besides, under the special representative of the president, task force team is also formed to deal with the day-to-day issues of the process, as well as doing major analytical and structural works. And independent experts, international experts, and private sector representatives will be also involved in the activity of the task force team. So we aim to actively conduct multilateral front in order to develop Uzbekistan's commitments of accession, compile the elements of report of the working group, as well as put endeavors on accelerating holding next working party meeting. Besides, intensifying bilateral negotiations is another important agenda, and we are concentrated on finalizing as many as possible conclusions of market access talks, both through Geneva and capitals of WTO members. Availing of this opportunity, I would like to call all donor organizations for cooperation in speeding up Uzbekistan's accession process. We do see a need for active collaboration in three directions. The first one is capacity building of our experts and engaged in the process, specialists engaged in the process. Second is the advisory assistant in building up comprehensive accession strategy and comparing notes for clarifying the right track. The third is experts assistant in harmonization process, as well as developing transformation proposals to bring our rules and practices in line with WTO agreements. If we sum up in short, now it's a great momentum to catch. The team has full support at the highest level for speeding up the process. The only remaining part is to do our business as it should be. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. You know, I was in, I think in Tashkent in 2018 to restart the process. So when you say that the beginning it's slow, you know, it's actually so right. It took like about, I think 2 years to really to get to resume the working party. And I think I'm also happy to hear the lesson that you've been taking from the first 3 years of negotiation. And then also thank you very much for sharing the information, the latest change being introduced by the presidential decree. And then congratulations once again, we are counting on you to implement and lead a new team so that I think, as you know very well, Director General is very keen to see this accession moving. She asks me all the time. So looking forward to seeing the real, you know, accelerated pace in the negotiation. So thank you very much. So let me now turn to Turkmenistan, Mr. Javarov. So I think since Working Party was established last year, and especially since the beginning of this month, I think Turkmenistan has been very active, I would say. I was actually in Ashgabat myself last week and interacting with you know, different parts of the government. So please tell us what is happening in Turkmenistan, including also the presidential decree, I think issued last week regarding the creation of the new government commission, and then also looking ahead, how does Turkmenistan intend to organize its work in preparation for hopefully the first working party meeting?
Thank you very much. Dear participants of the session, first of all, let me welcome you and express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the organizers for invitation for this very important session, very useful and very important session. Turkmenistan, being an active member of international community, so today strives to become a full member of World Trade Organization. Joining this reputable international organization will allow my country to become a full-fledged participant in the world economy, as well as interstate trade and economic projects. I'm sure that membership in WTO will have a significant positive effect on social economic development of Turkmenistan and in the region. So I want to note that my country became one of the first countries in the region start adopting global goals on the national level. So as a result, 17 goals, 148 targets, 175 SDG indicators were nationalized. It's definitely will help us to in the acceding process to WTO. So definitely we're expecting a positive effect of membership, of joining the WTO. First, improvement of national legislation in accordance with the requirements of WTO, which will enhance the quality of the business environment, will contribute to the development of business activity. And here I appreciate and we are very much grateful to our colleague Janar from Kazakhstan for sharing your experience. It's very important for us. And so secondly, we expecting to increase the transparency and predictability, which will lead to the increase in investment attractiveness. Compliance of the national economic policy with the international standards will contribute definitely to increase the sovereign credit ratings, which will directly affect the reduction of the cost of funding. Activation and expansion of trade, which will lead to the most complete satisfaction of needs of the population, including the expansion of import goods assortments. We are paying a great attention to the regional cooperation. Cooperation with the countries in the region is the most important strategic direction of our foreign economic activity. We highly appreciate the mutual understanding that has established between our countries in the region, which help us to expand the business and economic ties from year to year, which serves as a good platform to tackle common challenges faced in the trade and economic spheres. I am deeply convinced that Turkmenistan's accession to the World Trade Organization will contribute to the growth of the welfare of population and economic development of the entire Central Asian region. By increasing the trade turnover between our countries, implementing joint investment projects, increasing mutual investments on the equal footing. The intensification of trade and economic cooperation between our countries will have a positive impact on fast-track integration of region as a whole into a system of global international economic relations. The membership of Turkmenistan in the World Trade Organization will also contribute to the development and strengthening regional and interregional transport and logistic supply chain, which is very important. The development of existing and emerging of the new international transport corridors, which will also have the most positive impact to the economies in the region. In recent years, relations between, as Micah mentioned, Turkmenistan and WTO have significantly intensified. This primarily due to the fact that our country has set a task of becoming a full member, hopefully. In July 2020, our country received the status of observer, as you mentioned, and in accordance with the Article 12 of Marrakesh Agreement and by the decision of Commission, Council, WTO General Council, we granted acceding country as status of acceding country. In this regard, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the WTO Secretariat for supporting the application of Turkmenistan. Let me assure you that we will take all necessary steps to become a full member of this prestigious international organization. We would like to note that Turkmenistan started facilitation of the acceding process recently. In February, high-level meeting between our Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Director General Dr. Ngozi held in Dubai. Then in March this year, the working visit of delegation of Turkmenistan to the WTO headquarters in Geneva took place. During this visit, the delegation, in order to study the experience, took part in the 6th meeting of working group on Uzbekistan's accession to WTO. That was very helpful and useful for us. And we also held a number of productive meetings with the representatives of WTO, European Commission and UN and International Trade Center. Representatives of these international organizations stressed their readiness to assist Turkmenistan in reforming the economy and joining the World Trade Organization. At the end of May this year, the delegation of the World Trade Organizations, led by Micah, visited Turkmenistan. We are happy with the representatives, held a number of meetings with the various ministers and organizations. We held a roundtable meeting with the participation of foreign international organizations, during which prospects for further development of cooperation, Turkmenistan's accession to the WTO were considered. As of today, Turkmenistan has prepared and approved the working plan for 2023-2024 on expanding a cooperation with the WTO. This plan, which provides for specific steps to expand cooperation, was submitted to the WTO for your consideration, and hopefully we will be able to establish, we will hold a working party meeting until the end of this year. This is our plans. And our country is becoming a full member of organization is also reflecting in the recently approved national program for the social economic development up to 2052, as well as the foreign trade strategy up to 2025. We appreciate the support of WTO Secretariat provides us the procedural matters, as well as on the capacity building during the accession process. On June 2nd this year, the special decree of the President of Turkmenistan has been issued, and the special commission, high-level commission in the government, led by Deputy Prime Minister for Economy, has been established. I believe that this commission will work hard and closely with the WTO Secretariat. As we can see from the above examples, our country is actively and consistently working in the direction of ultimate goal. In conclusion, I'd like to thank you for your attention and wish you success, and hopefully we will be full member of WTO as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jabbar, for especially sharing, Turkmenistan's vision for the WTO membership. I was first in Ashgabat in 2016 to start engaging, and then of course I was there last week, and I really felt a complete, change in terms of readiness. And I think one thing that I kept hearing from with everyone was how did they do, how did Kyrgyz Republic do, how did Tajikistan do, and of course Kazakhstan. There's so much interest in knowing, how accession negotiation went, but also what happened after. So thank you very much for, providing very rich insight. But maybe Ambassador Aytanova, having heard both from Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, I know that you have probably more advice you might want to give. It's yours, the floor is yours.
Okay. You know, I'm sure that we'll have more chances to meet in Geneva and in Astana and in your capitals. And I introduced my team, they are present here. And, you know, this team also joined just now, as Isbek was saying, that your team is very young. These experts who are here around, they were also youngsters, like 23, 25 years old, just after universities, you know, with the English language. And the basic criteria was to speak English, you know, to understand the documents in English. So, and we have matured and grown, and it will take time, but eventually it will come. And there is no escape for that. And I have been, you know, just Maika was saying that other countries' experiences. That was the anxiety which I was carrying myself as a chief negotiator for 13 years. Whenever I was meeting with anybody from our region, you know, as chief negotiators or services experts, and I had my titles like deputy minister, minister, but I was sitting with the experts straight, you know, and trying to learn as much as possible. And my team was there too. You know, I think that in this exercise, there are no hierarchies. It doesn't matter which position you occupy. What is the most important and the biggest criteria is the knowledge and expertise and eagerness or willingness to learn from each other. And particularly of countries who acceded earlier than us, but have similar economic structures, because, you know, you'll be facing negotiations on export duties. You know, it's not part of the GATT, it's not part of the WTO legal framework, but we in Central Asia, our economies are major suppliers of raw materials to other economies who are very much focused on further strengthening their processing industries. So, and of course they want to make sure that there is an uninterrupted supply of these raw materials to their markets. And one of the major issues will be export, you know, export duties. I remember the first list which I received from one of the members on export duties even included bananas and some, you know, fishery products and maritime, you know, seafood products. And we were, because they even didn't bother to change the positions, but everything was there. So, and everybody was telling me, what's the problem for you to make a commitment on, you know, binding at zero level export duties for seafood or for tropical products? So, but the basic idea is that, of course, every member who will be negotiating with you are interested how trade relations between your economies, your countries, and them will be continuing. And I should tell you, they are on a very regular touch with their businesses who are working in your economies. And they get the first-hand information on your regulatory framework, and you know, if you are going to hide any information, then you are going to lose the time, because there is no way of hiding anything. It's better to be transparent. It creates trust, and trust is very important in bilateral negotiations, and they have to trust you. Chemistry and trust are important factors. We don't read about that in the textbooks. In textbooks, we'll only read about substantive issues, but the way how you conduct, the way how you communicate and translate the documents into English and send them and leave them, allows them to process that information, and that would be more beneficiary. And there is no way as a, you know, free riding, because everything should be worked out, and there are no details in these negotiations. Sometimes commas will mean more than the text itself, so there are no details. And you know, the more technical experts you have in your team, the better for chief negotiators, because chief negotiators do not have time, you know, to go through everything. But details do matter in these negotiations. So I'm sure that we'll have more conversations in the future, depending on the subject matter. And for one of the major issues for our region and also after large accessions such as China, Russian Federation, they have learned a lot. It's a role of state trading enterprises in the economy and the role of the state in the economy. These issues are not regulated directly by GATT. They are not regulated directly by WTO agreements, but in the course of the process and while undertaking more market-oriented reforms, you have to show how you are decreasing the role of the state in the economy and allowing more competition. These are the indirect effects of the negotiations process on your economic reforms at home. So,
Thank you very much, Ambassador Chanova. As always, you give a very pointed advice. Let me probably now turn to ITC, Daria. So ITC has been, I think, supporting accession, really around the world, not just in this region, but very intensely in this region. And then WTO is very pleased to work with ITC in these countries. So my question to you, Daria, what has been, I think, ITC's key observation working with Central Asian country, and then what are some of the lessons I think ITC has learned working with acceding government in the region?
Mike, thank you very much. And ITC also very pleased to work closely with the WTO on accessions. Good afternoon, dear participants of today's session. ITC is very pleased to co-host this event and to be part of it. Let me first introduce my organization. So International Trade, thank you organizers for putting the slides up. Okay. Yes, so International Trade Center is a joint agency of the United Nations and WTO, providing technical assistance to countries in need. This organization was established in 1964 in Geneva, Switzerland, and its history accounts for more than 60 years of providing assistance to developing and transition economies. And we do it with the aim to help countries to achieve their trade and development objectives. ITC has a global outreach, and we deliver projects in 128 countries. And Central Asia is one of the important regions for ITC, where we operate actively, promoting intra-regional trade, but also international trade, extra-regional. And we do it through different means, by empowering businesses, through trade facilitation reforms, and through improving transport connectivity, and also through creating a business environment that is attractive and that is in line with the international trade rules. We do it through our two projects financed by the European Union. One is Ready for Trade Central Asia, and another one is Uzbekistan WTO accession. Mika, if we have time, I will turn a bit to economic side. Yes, as ITC, we do some research, and we wanted to provide you some trade figures regarding the region. So here at these two graphs, you see the overall import and export of Central Asia countries among themselves and also with other trading partners. And we clearly see from this graph that for trade that belongs to Central Asian republics only, it's only 10%. So 10% belongs to intra-regional trade. And looking at other regional cooperations well established, like for example, European Union, this figure is about 60%. So we see that there is a huge potential in developing intra-regional trade. Also, if you look at trade of Central Asian republics with other countries, we see that main trading partners are China, European Union, and Russia. So almost 60% of imports and exports belongs to just these three partners. And this also creates opportunities for better market access and better integration into value-added chains. Of course, it's interesting to see what are the reasons and factors that hinder this integration within the region and also with the rest of the world. There are obvious reasons, right? The asymmetry in social-economical development in these countries, the different size of population, different size of territory, different abundance of natural resources. And of course, transport connectivity is also a challenge. Long distances and a low density of population that makes transportation costs very high. But also what research shows that there are also not enough harmonization among trade policies in these countries and prevalence of non-tariff barriers such TBT, SPS measures and import licenses, that sometimes these measures are imposed to protect domestic producers and not in line with the fair competition rules. And some recommendations that we wanted to share how to improve trade, how to improve integration within the region and also beyond. Of course, there are some obvious solutions about improving transport infrastructure, hard component, also soft component in terms of simplification of trade facilitation procedures. But the most important thing, in our view, is the creation of a legal framework that will unify the policies of Central Asian republics. And this we see through the instrument of accession to the WTO. Acceding to the WTO sends a clear signal to other partners, to foreign partners, that country is committed to operate in line with certain rules and procedures. And it makes trade more predictable and allows growth in trade, attraction of investments, and also more predictable trade. Now I will turn to ITC support on accession and what we do. It's one of ITC's objectives to support countries in their accession and post-accession processes. And over the last 15 years, ITC supported more than 10 countries. It's Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Ethiopia, Laos, PDR, and Yemen, Sudan, and others. Currently, ITC is supporting 3 countries in their ongoing accession processes. It's Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Iraq. And we do it through EU-funded projects. And also to tell you a bit about overall ITC approach on providing support on accession. So our lesson learned from providing this assistance is that it needs to be done on a comprehensive basis, covering all aspects of accession. It also needs to be done in a tailored, made way. It means that to account to the needs of each country, its economic development status and also status of accession. Nevertheless, we may single out several key elements that belongs to this approach. So what we do, we provide assistance with drafting technical documentation on accession. We also support each track of negotiations, bilateral, multilateral, plurilateral. We do support countries with undertaking regulatory reforms. It means that we aim to bring the national laws, regulations in line with the WTO agreements, with the WTO rules. Important role plays also building capacities of government officials in understanding WTO rules and also an ability to negotiate, to formulate accession commitments. But we work not only with the public sector, we also work with the private sector, raising the awareness about accession process, about benefits that are stemming from membership. And we aim to we aim to foster this consensus between public and private sector that will help to implement necessary regulatory reforms and commitments that will stem from accession. Yeah, also some recommendations that are coming from our experience of working with countries acceding to the WTO. I know that more practical advices already were given by Excellency Ms. Ayjanova and Mr. Urunov, but some more general observations of what is needed for a country in accession process to finally, eventually make it to WTO membership. Is first of all and foremost is that strong political will remains at the highest governmental authority, and it remains still the whole accession process. Another important element is that a well coordinated system needs to be established that will allow interaction between national institutions to develop negotiating positions. Another one is building sufficient human institutional capacities to negotiate commitments and also to implement afterwards WTO agreements. And the last point is engage actively with the technical assistance agencies. These TI agencies, they can provide you with top-notch experts and also share best practices that were implemented in other countries. And in that way also to build capacities of your negotiating team and make the process smooth, successful. And ITC stands ready, as usually, to provide further such technical assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Daria, for providing. It was very nice summary of, I think, following the presentation from the negotiator. I wanted to steal maybe 5 minutes of the next session, if I may, so that I allow for maybe opportunity from the participant to ask 1-2 questions, and then we will close. Any questions from the floor? Yes, Marina.
Our expert from Kazakhstan's team,
thank you very much.
On state trading enterprises as well.
Thank you very much, dear speakers, for the recent updates on the process of accession of Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan to the WTO and membership of Kazakhstan in the organization. My question relates to intellectual property rights. Despite the fact that in our region it's not paid that much attention, this issue is of huge importance for the key negotiators of the WTO, such as United States and European Union. Thanks to the efforts of Kazakhstan, for example, in 2006, it was excluded from the United States special list, 301, and has never been added afterwards. So, but unfortunately, I've mentioned that despite your efforts in the process of accession, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan are still on this watch list. The addition by the United States to this list allow this country to apply different trade sanctions to the countries. So I would like to ask what is done by your countries in order to improve intellectual property rights protection and enforcement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Maybe let me take one more questions. Anyone? Yes, I see the hands up there.
Здравствуйте, Институт экономических исследований Казахстан. Я, пожалуйста, можно задам вопрос на русском языке. В 2020 году, как известно, была выпущена публикация совместно Всемирного банка и ВТО о роли гендерного равенства в развитии торговых отношений. И, знаете, я бы хотела спросить, что было сделано в странах Туркменистан, Узбекистан для решения вопросов, проблем именно в этой сфере, чтобы развивать торговые отношения? Спасибо.
Sorry, I missed the question. but Jana.
It's about gender and trade.
Okay.
And by exceeding
All
that.
right, so probably let me give the floor to maybe starting with Uzbekistan, then Turkmenistan.
Regarding IPR, I would say that Uzbekistan started to get engaged with the IPR issues as we reactivated our WTO accession. So I would say that now it's there are the legislation acts that regulate the IPR in the Republic of Uzbekistan, but at the same time now our team, headed by the Ministry of Justice, they're reconsidering it, and I would say the process is going quite intensively. And by the end of this year, we are going to identify all the matters that are related to IPR that are not compliant with the WTO requirements and the WTO agreement on IPR. And regarding the second part, regarding the gender, I know that the Kazakhstan team was mostly represented by in our case, yes, we are trying to balance it, and in terms of the legislation, even in the parliament, we have the quote of 30% for women to take the seats in the parliament, and even in the ministries and agencies, we have established a rule so that at least one female leadership could hold the position of at least deputy head of the ministry or the agency. So, for example, now Minister of Economy and Finance, in terms of public procurement, woman holds the position of a Deputy Minister of Economy and Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chap.
Thank you very much. Regarding the IPR, so I'd like to inform that in 2003, Turkmenistan established a special State Department on intellectual property rights, which closely working with the organization in Geneva. Just recently, we had a very fruitful meeting with the leadership with the intellectual property rights. So I would say that we do not face the serious problems with the limitation of the trade and so international business of Turkmenistan. I know only one case relates to the textile production, because in some 15 years ago, it's been a message that our country used the children efforts. That was not true that time. So now we are working closely with the organization to make clear all the situation. We are reporting, we work closely. I believe that shortly we will overcome all these problems. Regarding the second gender issue, so I would say same like my colleague from Uzbekistan. We have special regulatory framework on the quality and balancing the gender issues. So I would also say that we have a big number of leaders in the government and parliament, female leaders So actually, the chairman of the parliament is a female now. We have number of ministers within the structure of ministries. So we have big now. I would say even we have imbalance in favor of females now, because there are a big number of females in the government and the structures of companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please say that.
I just would like to add, on IPR, it was 301 list is more on enforcement of laws, IPR laws. So it was an issue for us in the course of negotiations. It wasn't so much about aligning our legislative framework, but more about strengthening the enforcement practices and mechanisms, particularly with regard to counterfeit products and ex-officio rights being introduced in the customs body. So with regard to women economic empowerment, I would like just to mention that there is a project ready for trade in Central Asia, and all Central Asian countries are benefiting from this project. Elena Bultrimova is a coordinator from the International Trade Center of that project, and there is a very strong component on women and trade, particularly supporting women businesses, and particularly during COVID time, who are engaged in online businesses by creating online electronic platform which will help them to develop their businesses. So within this opportunity, I would like to thank European Union for financing this project and for ITC for its effective implementation. And we'll be having next session, which would be about e-commerce and digitalization. And I would like to ask the audience, distinguished, to stay for that session, because you will learn a lot about the practical work on the ground, which is taking place at the level of the regulatory framework, as well as the specific projects in support of e-commerce in Central Asia. So, as a representative of the MC12 chair country, and as ambassador of that country to the WTO, I was very proud to work on women and trade paragraph in the outcome document. It was very close to my heart. I was a chief negotiator from Central Asia, and when I started negotiations in 2003 and 2004, many people were just coming to look at women negotiators from Central Asia. For them, you know, they had very heavy stereotypes of women's role in our economies, and particularly, you know, women leaders are mostly in the social sector, and so they're responsible for social policies, but they didn't meet women who are dealing with economics and global trade. So they were coming just to look and to listen to you. And we went through that process, you know, and therefore I think that this issue is very close to my heart, and our entire negotiating team was consisting of women. And I remember we went to the TIFA meeting in Washington, DC, and we were all 5 Central Asian countries represented there at the ministerial and deputy ministerial level. And I had my team, like 12 young women, you know, and me not being so young, but heading that delegation. and USTR at that time, Ambassador Quirk was mentioning, I thought that we at the USTR are so advanced with women and gender parity, but today Kazakhstan's delegation has surprised me very pleasantly. You know, and we were also making this type of, everybody was, you know, it helped to our negotiations, I should say. You know, when you have more women and, you know, who are negotiating, who are sitting next to experts, I don't want to sound as, you know, because there are stereotypes around our region, about our region. And in many cases, they are not justified. And when they see more young women, English-speaking, well-educated, it also opens, you know, the doors and makes them more willing to negotiate and sometimes to make compromises. Thank you.
I think after Ambassador Jonathan's remark, I have nothing to add. And I know that we are running late, and apologies for online participants. I know that you have posed some questions, but unfortunately, as Ambassador Chan said, we have to move to the next session. So all I can say at this point is really thanks to the panelists for your contribution to this panel. And then I know there are so many more questions. So from a WTO side and together with ITC, we'll be continue to provide this platform so that you can keep exchanging for your information. Probably late September or early October, we plan to organize Central Trade Policy Forum in Almaty and continue this deep dive of this conversation. So with this, thank you very much.